Look out, boys and girls.
Back.
Look your eyes.
Okay, welcome to the Lakeshore Project. This is going to be a pretty lengthy series, and I'm really looking forward to it because this was the first time that we got to clear the land. Basically, the market is so hot, we can't get subs necessarily to come in on our schedule, so that meant that we got to pivot and clear out all the brush and take down the trees. So in this video, I want to put a huge disclaimer. We are not professional tree fellers, but we did watch a bunch of YouTube videos. We took a lot of precautions, nobody got hurt, but do not imitate anything you see here. Besides that, enjoy the show.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was awesome! Oh my word, that was awesome.
Maybe we'll stake it?
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet. Yeah, I want to push some trees down today.
Awesome.
I got it. Now, if you haven't followed us for very long, you might not know this, but we are not framing subs. Instead, we work directly for the general contractor as hourly employees. It's a family business my dad started in 1978. Over the years, we have just done framing, foundations, flat work, siding in-house. And because of how hard it's been to get excavators to come in, we bought a mini excavator so that we could do small work like this. And it is so fun. I love it. At this point in time, I only had about 10 or 15 hours in the machine. So naturally, I use my lunch break, I stay after work and practice. And I really want to be able to get this so that it's second nature, drop the bucket and rotate. It is not second nature for me yet. I've asked a lot of operators, I've had some guys on Instagram reach out, and there is no substitute for seat time. Well, unfortunately, I spend my days framing, so seat time comes on the weekends and at night.
Slurring his own bike. Look out, boys and girls.
Back.
Look your eyes. Oh, that's awesome.
That was awesome! Oh my word, that was awesome.
Now, before anybody gets offended, don't forget, this is a framing account, and we build houses out of lumber, and that lumber comes from the trees, in part, that are taken down on the lots that we build on. So, it's not that we're looking to kill trees. They do need to come down, and there's a real sense of accomplishment when you do it safely. You can probably tell that does not sound like the chainsaw that you heard earlier, and that's because it's a battery-powered chainsaw. It's good for small tasks. Like, just the tree was there, you just needed to keep going just a little further before it would come down.
Boom!
Boom.
And that's how the arc was built.
This job's about a half mile from our other framing job, so we brought the telehandler over because we didn't want any of these trees to come down on, this is where the community stores their kayaks and things, it's a boat launch. So we just wanted to make sure that we can kind of push them in the right spot, and forklift was our solution. We're framers. We're framers.
That's perfect.
I think the battery's dead, Kyle.
Battery's dead. I gotta put a new battery in it.
Boy, I just don't think we're gonna pull it.
It's pretty long, dude.
No, I don't want him to ride it. Get off! Get off! Oh, man.
I could have stood on that.
Oh, just stop pouting. And it just keeps going.
Now we can. Look at that. That's about 30 inches in diameter, or 700 centimeters if you're Canadian. You wanted to know. And it's also 5 tons, also known as 10,000 pounds, or 50 million kilograms.
So here at Awesome Framers, we pride ourselves on imperial to metric conversion, back and forth.
Good job,
And
Timmy.
it's always wrong deliberately. It's just we're just having fun. A little better view of what we were dealing with. You can see a lot of those trees were leaning, and we just didn't want them to fall on the boats. We wanted them, in fact, we had them pretty good. We just used the forklift just to kind of guide it or make sure it didn't go in a direction we didn't want it to go. But the guys did a great job of spending their evenings, honestly, watching the professionals on YouTube. And none of these were crazy. We're not on a slope. They weren't drastically leaning. And so we felt comfortable being able to do it. But it was very slow, lots of safety meetings. And I'm not just saying that for YouTube. I take that stuff real serious. And it all went really well. We were tired. Well, they were tired. I got to be in a mini excavator for a week. That was the best December I've had in years. As they say in Latin, res ipsa loquitur. I know I'm mangling the pronunciation, but the thing speaks for itself. I learned that watching Law & Order, the original with Jack McCoy. That was still the best. And Ben Stone, he was a great prosecutor. Anyway, we got to get that obligatory picture of all of us. For no other reason than, I guess, social media? I don't know. It seems like it gets to a point where mentally I'm ready to give up, and then all of a sudden something breaks loose and it's like, I think we got it. And then
I could tell by your looks, and then it was like, you got that, and it was like, it moved. It moved.
it moved, yeah.
Because this thing was not moving. I was like, what does he got to do to get this?
Well, I was thinking, how much farther do I need to go underneath it? But I think we got it. If I can get it to flip over, maybe.
Yeah, if you get it, I don't know if you scrape it, but we can just hack away at it, because this thing is a beast.
It turns out I didn't get very good footage, but this was part of like a two-headed stump. And we were able to kind of dig out around it and cut it in half and drag off that piece. But this was heavy. And we didn't have water or any kind of way to kind of hose off all of that mud. So I just kept digging around it. And again, I don't do this stuff. I've talked to some people since this, and we definitely could have approached it differently. And I'm sure you'll tell me that in the comments, because it's YouTube, right? And I'm not saying that. Yeah, I'm saying that snarkily, whatever, however you say that word. But basically, once we started, I was able to kind of pull it and push it and rotate it. And then it was just a matter of, it took a while. It took a couple of chains, and it was raining by the time we got it in the dump truck. But it took a bit of time. I think it took the entire afternoon to dig that thing out. But once it's out, that is a sense of accomplishment. It was like, we did not want to leave it. It was really the last thing that needed to be cleaned up. And we didn't want to wait on the excavators to come in with their bigger machine. And we were able to get it out. So there's the dance moves. One thing I would have done differently is I would have brought a pressure washer paid for water from the neighbor, and we could have just propped this thing up and just hosed that thing off. It would have been a lot lighter, a lot easier to work with, but hey, live and learn.
It's a really good stretch.
And there it is. That little dump truck is 8 feet by 12 feet deep. Give you a sense of scale. Thank you for following along with this video. This was really fun to kind of relive these moments from last winter. This series is going to follow the foundation, the framing, the siding, as well as a bunch of stuff on energy conservation, the energy code. So make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, ring that little bell, and follow along with the Lakeshore Project. Thank you, everybody. All right, welcome to the 720 Project. That name has no significance. It is just the address and helps me remember. So we are setting up footings in this video. And as you can see here, we're pulling rough square because it has to fit in just right. This is a pie-shaped lot next to the boat launch. And this local community is a real stickler, especially on that back right-hand corner, and for good reason. We can understand that. But it was worth taking about an hour, maybe even almost 2 hours to get it set in there, just to make sure that we weren't going to have problems down the road. Now, our preferred footing material is 2x6. It's easy to work with, and we can use it all up throughout the project, and you're going to see that as we go along. So basically, Kyle and I just go opposite directions. We start at a 90-degree corner and then work away. And if we have a third person, then he's kind of a gopher and does some cutting for us. So we get that staked in a nice big square, and then after that, everything is just parallel to the back. Here's just a short video clip using the Metabo HPT duplex nailer, which is so much faster than hand nailing. But stay tuned for a review on that.
Better lighting.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Our footing size here is only called out to be, I think for a single story, forget what the latest code cycle is. I think it's 16 inches wide, but it might be 12 inches. We keep all of our spreader cleats exactly the same, 1 story or 2 story. So in this case, they were 18 inches wide by about 8 inches deep. Now, you'll notice that through the center there, we decided to run strip footings. Normally we would have like 40 pier pads. If you don't know what those are, you're not missing out. It's really a hassle. It is easier for us to pour strip footings. It's easier on the pump guy. And then all we do is build pony walls on those. So you'll see that in the video when we get to the floor system, but it's just a lot simpler. You pay for a little extra concrete, but it does make the assembly stronger, and it really simplifies things for us on the labor side. Okay, I will be the first to admit we are not the fastest at hand tying. I'm definitely faster than Kyle because that's how I learned when I was younger, but it was not really worth him getting faster. We bought a rebar tying gun. Now, whoever the new guy is, he can be a really fast rebar tyer. So it's not a cheap tool, but totally worth it from our standpoint. It takes too long for a guy to get good at tying bar, but this thing is faster from the moment its battery's charged. Oh, by the way, there was a slight jam there. That happens every once in a while. Turn the gun off and on.
Sweet, dude.
Keep going. So I order all the sticks of all the corners, 30 by 30. We don't bend anything on site. It's a stock item in the yard, super easy. So 30 by 30, 2 bends per corner, plus whatever we need for the walls. And then we only order 20-foot sticks of bar for the rest, set it in place, and then grind it in place. Don't use a tape measure. Okay, here's how I install these. I use my tape to pull spacing, and then this guy I want facing toward me. That's it. Just don't hit your finger. Okay, so I pull spacing with my tape. I want this facing me, and then just hit it. Okay, ignore everything that I just showed you. I use that when it's like basement walls, and I have to get the bar right on. But typically, like in this case, our verts are 48 inches on center. I order for 36 inches on center. That way I can eyeball them, never fail inspection, and you can see how much faster I'm going not having to pull out a tape. Now, when you see the point of view footage coming up here, it's generally just a tap on each side and you're good to go. But you have to have a little bit of confidence because you don't want to hit your finger. Right there. I've never hit my finger, by the way. I can't remember what these are called, but I'll put the description or the link in the description below. It is a little bit more spendy, but we find that we make that up in the labor and it's just easier. The inspectors like to see all the verts. We are required to tie them in. This is just the simplest way we found to do that. Good morning, everybody. Check out our job site. We got snow this weekend. What a beautiful way to start our week. We were off yesterday because, of course, all that snow. Let me do kind of a walk around, show you guys. Oh, I'm not even gonna flinch. I think if I keep moving as a target. Anyway, there's how it looks. We're gonna pour on Thursday at noon.
3 times. 4 times. 5 times.
Oh, nice.
Shane hasn't gotten you once. I've gotten you 5 times.
I just got his head.
Whoa!
I just got his foot. I got a few more still.
Nice.
My hands are cold.
Oh! I thought I was gonna get him in the head. That's why I'm wearing a hard hat.
Hey, that's not fair.
Yeah, it is.
You're too close to me.
Okay, I just threw out my arm. Everybody else okay? So last check before we pour. So after holding the crosshairs on the detector that you just saw, that takes over controlling the unit. So this is going to self-adjust until it hits the detector, and then we know we're nice and square. Okay, as you can see here, we typically will use a line pump. I don't think we've used a boom pump since 2003. This is ABC Pump Company. I absolutely love these guys. Paul and his son Ryan. They rescued us about 10 years ago. I had 30 yards sitting in trucks and our pump guy just didn't show up. I called the batch plant and said, who do you recommend? They said ABC, gave me the number, called Paul, hopped in the truck, drove an hour to us. He keeps his truck, his gear in great shape. We just love having Paul and Rai Rai on the job site. The other advantage to us is that they run the hose. So we help them drag it around, but basically then we have an extra person on site. I love these guys.
Where we start, Rai?
We're gonna start right about here.
Okay.
Now I can just imagine some of you are skeptical and you're thinking to yourself, that mud is way too loose. It looks like that, but it's not. It's a line pump mix, so it's 6-sack 60/40 pea gravel mix, and that's designed to flow through a 2-inch hose. Now, we've had it tested twice at 27, 28 days, whatever that standard is, 4,000 PSI concrete. Code here only requires, I think, 2,500, maybe it's 3,000 now, so we're well above what we need. Here's how we organize for the actual concrete placement. Since Rai Rai runs the hose, I have a concrete rake and I go along with him and I push the mud around to make sure that it's up against the forms and there's no voids. Kyle follows closely behind and he screeds the top level with the footing boards. And it's kind of a hassle because we're working around all those verts. And then person number 3 trowels the concrete. And that works really well. Now the thing about this is it is exhausting. So we try to switch jobs about halfway through. And then toward the end, everybody does whatever needs to be done. So that way nobody does one thing for too long. This is hard on the body. Frankly, I don't know how guys do this day in, day out. For us, we only do about 4 or 5 of these a year. That's not so bad. And Rai Rai, of course, operating the hose. He seals off kind of toward the edges first, fills in the middle, and then we just get into a rhythm and work. Usually we have music playing, which helps, but we didn't because it's raining. Now, when the weather's good enough and we pour first thing in the morning, we can often strip that day. Usually we like to strip the cleats off the top and trowel them smooth. In this case, as you can see, that was not possible because of the rain, so we have those nice lines through the footings. Totally irrelevant structurally, and it all gets buried, so it doesn't matter. The biggest thing you can do, one, never leave nails. A friend of mine calls those snake bites. None of us have stepped on nails, we never will. But the Burke Bar Jr. is like the world's best pry bar. I think we have 3 of them because you really can't strip these forms easily without them. They're so useful. Leverage is your friend. Okay, there's what the footprint looks like. Notice how it's all cleaned up and organized before we start stacking walls. All those footing boards go in the middle, stacked roughly by size. We're gonna use those up in the crawl space. Everything looks nice and square and parallel, although a guy on Instagram told me he thought I was a little out of square. I don't know how he could see that from drone footage, but turns out he was right. We were like a foot out of, no, I'm just kidding. We were close enough for framers. Thanks guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next part, which will be foundation walls. Everybody, we spent the last 4 or 5 hours pouring footings in the rain, but my 1620 pants have kept my legs totally dry, even with water running off the coat. So I'll report back. They're stretchy. They're made for wintertime. Nice job, 1620. They're still dry. They're still dry.
It looked like a rough fall. Careful, it's slippery.
These are not waterproof boots though.
Okay.
This is how you remind me of what I really am. This is how you remind me of what I really am. It's not like you say sorry. I was.
Like my new 1620 pants.
It's like super wide. Just there you go.
I can't turn to the right.
You're not an ambi-turner?
See what I mean?
It's pretty good. That was almost believable. I held my breath for a second.
Anyway, here's the sweet pants. Oh, I got them dirty. But the ultimate?
Wide angle. Wow, it looks like you're gonna kick me right in the mouth.
Welcome to the 720 Lakeshore project. In this video, we're going to form the foundation walls, pour concrete, and strip those walls and get this house ready to actually finally get to framing. We'll also cover some of the tools that make it a much more efficient process. Before we tie any rebar, notice on the outside of the foundation, and I guess the inside, we already have some of our panels pre-staged. It is not fun to try and walk through the rebar. That's a no-go. So the process is line snapped, clips down, pack your panels, get everything staged, then tie rebar, and then we'll be ready to start actually forming this thing. We're forming 4-foot foundation walls on this job, but it is not for structural reasons. It just has to do with the way the lot laid out. So code was 1 stick of bar at the top, 1 stick 3 inches up. This is the Max rebar tying tool. It is extremely fast. I'll show you at the end of the video, and extremely expensive. So how do we justify paying the money for a tool like this? Here's how. We're a small business. For the last more than 10 years, since 2008, it has just been Kyle and me. We couldn't find young guys. When the market crashed, we didn't have enough work. When the market came back, we couldn't find young guys. But what we found is that investing in tools allowed us to be just as efficient as a larger crew. So don't be afraid to invest in tools. There's a labor shortage. It takes a long time to train people, but we still need to make money. So even though this is a very expensive tool, it's allowed us to do jobs that as the two of us, we would not have been able to do before, and do them very fast. Let me just show you how fast this thing is. And I'm not even gonna look. There's no one alive on this planet that can tie that fast. The other benefit is as you get older, you can keep rolling efficiently without the wear and tear on your body. The panels we use are 2 foot by 8 foot, 1 1/8 MDO. whenever we stack walls from basically 2 foot up to 6 foot, we stack horizontally. And we always run the first row first, all the way around the job. After that, we're going to stack the second row. And the advantage of that is that it's easy, we get into a rhythm, but then it lets us know what pieces we're going to need for the 4 foot walls. When we stack the second row of panels, we stack them on snap ties. That's what keeps the wall exactly 6 or 8 inches apart, whatever your spacing is. Then what's hanging off the side of the panel there are wedges or shoes. And if you watch the previous video that I have on stacking 10-foot walls, you'll see how the system works. Really idiot-proof. Trust me, it's idiot-proof. After we've shot grade, you can kind of see it in the form there, and we've tacked our grade nails about every 16 inches. That's what we're going to bring concrete up to. Then I lay out all of my anchor bolts so that no framing lands on an anchor bolt. This same box of 50 anchor mates we've had since I think 2014. You can see how easy they are. They tack with a 6-penny duplex nail, slide your bolt in, and you're good to go. Okay, so I have to install the STHD14s on either side of my garage openings and a few other spots. Here is the fastest way that we found to do that. Buy the reusable strap mates. So a couple reminders, minimum from the edge is a 1/2 inch. I always go 1 inch because I can eyeball that. They just tack with 6-penny duplex nails, 2 per, very easy to strip. So basically it's just little wedges that fit in and hold the strap. So adjust to the pour line. That is it. So what I'll do is I'll get both of these installed and then I'll make sure that they're plumb and that they're even. Check it for plumb. You don't want to look like an idiot. It might not notice it to your eye, but then as soon as it nails to the wall and you have your opening right here, and if this distance is like really wonky, then it looks like you didn't care. Okay, as is our custom, once we've cleaned up, we take a drone shot. I think it's technically called a droney when it's a drone selfie, as I recently learned. Anyway, there you can see it all cleaned up. We are ready to pour concrete. Everything, at least from the air, looks nice, square, and parallel. If you remember from the last video, first of all, Paul's our favorite person on earth. We use a line pump, so this is a line pump mix. 6-stack 60/40 mix. It flows really nicely, doesn't leave voids, very easy to work. Kyle stays nice and close to Paul, bringing it up to grade and mucking it nice and flat, and then Shane or me will come in afterwards and then finish it right to the line. Just show us how it's done, Shane.
Okay, let's go.
I'll probably get somebody telling me I'm a hack.
What would you say to somebody that said you're a hack?
They're probably a hack.
Ooh, good one. Okay,
Yeah.
What's another thing you'd say?
You're probably a super hack.
Yep.
You don't even know, if I'm doing it wrong, what's the right way to do it? Hack.
Yeah, good one.
So,
That's a sick burn.
yeah. You know what else is a good burn? That sun. It's a nice day out. Burned my neck. It's good. Good burn. Sick.
Sick burn.
Check this out.
Sick burn, dude. I don't normally use a concrete vibrator on 2-foot or 4-foot walls, but I always use it around earthquake hardware. I want the concrete to consolidate correctly, and let's be honest, I wouldn't know if it didn't until something really bad happened. That line pump mix consolidates really well. This is just insurance. Stripping panels is all about rhythm. We go through and we pull all the cleats, everything that's got nails in it. We all split up and just circle the foundation, pulling everything off. It is mindless. So it's all about just the rhythm of the work and music. Used to be my job to come out after school and start stripping foundations. And I have to be honest, I hated the work. Now I kind of like it because you can just get into a rhythm. But all those lessons I was first taught, like pull all your nails first, pound on the side of the spreader cleat so the concrete flies off and the cleat's basically clean. That's how you do it. The guys taught me well. After that, it's just a matter of sweating. By the end of the day, we're all beat. But hey, that's what we get paid the big bucks for. You can see how much pressure there was on those panels though, because it's not like the cleats or the shoes just pop right off. You do have to beat on them a little bit. So that's because there's pressure that was pushing outward from the concrete.
My forearms are tired. I'm really tired.
This right here is why I like these strap mates, is there's not going to be any spalling of those straps when I strip the form. So I just use my cat's paw or nail puller, pull the little 6-penny duplex nails, and then just a little bit of tapping on that plastic wedge. Don't tap them too hard, we have broken before. Just a little bit of tapping, pull those things right off, and you'll see that when I pull this panel off, the concrete is nice and smooth and none of it chips away from behind that strap.
I do.
Cool. Never mind.
Stripping panels is all about efficiency. So while that panel is still in place, I use my hammer to scrape the top of the panel. Then once the panel hits the dirt, I don't have to flip it over again. I pull the panel out, but before it comes off completely, that's when I'm going to pull all the grade nails. So you can see I haven't bent over yet. There's plenty of that coming. But at least for the top row, this is the simplest and easiest way on your body. Your body's going to be working plenty hard during this process. So make it as easy as possible by just thinking a little bit. See, I still didn't bend over to grab that panel. Now I can scrape it in place, flip it around before I have to bend over to pick it up.
I never told you.
We decided to strip the outside first on the off chance that the dirt guy showed up, although as busy as everybody was, we knew that wasn't a real possibility. But scrape the panels while they're still vertical and leaning against the wall, and then we flip them inside, and then we're going to stack all the panels inside so that after backfill, then we can pull right up with the forklift and take them all out. We weren't going to need them for a while, so this really was the safest place. If somebody's going to steal those panels, we're going to make them work for it. Now, one method of beating these snap ties up would be to beat them up with your hammer, but it's better to pry them up with your hammer. It's a lot easier on your elbows. I can definitely tell 43 years, I need to baby my elbows a little bit. So work your way down the wall, bend all of those snap ties up. Then you're going to be able to use the Burke bar to just scrape and pull the panel right off the wall. to, hey Shane, Shane, Burke Bar. Leverage is your friend when you're stripping. And these Burke bars, it's the Burke Bar Junior if you Google it. Awesome. Scrape the top of the panel with the Burke Bar. Now you're not switching to another tool. Again, it's just always thinking, what can I do before I move that panel any further?
Oh no, I spilled your coffee.
Better not have.
Coffee's so good.
No. No.
I'm getting sweaty. Getting so sweaty. That's gonna be awesome. You definitely have to learn that one.
We use, I think it's called JP Strip or JH1 Strip or something like that. Anyway, it's form release. Works really well. You can see how easy those panels come off. I can't remember what day we poured this on. We typically will strip the next day, but if it's Friday, then we strip Monday because the panels come off easier and the concrete is plenty hard by that point. And that is it. I think about 2 o'clock, 2:30, it was completely stripped, cleaned up, everything was inside the forms, all the plastic was pulled off the dirt pile, so it's ready for the excavators to come in. Reikki's running the tight line for all the downspout drains. That's it, time to go home. Well, it turns out we couldn't get dirt guys to come in, so that is me and our mini excavator backfilling this foundation. I did a combination of bucket work and the blade. I am not an expert at this, not even close. I think I have a total of like 70 or 80 hours in the machine at this point, but I got it good enough that we could come in and frame the job, drive the forklifts around it. Dirt guys will do a better job when they come in for utility ditches and all that good stuff. Thanks for following along. We're finally going to get into the framing starting in the next video. This video is sponsored by Huber Engineered Woods, the makers of Advantech Subfloor. In this video, I'm going to do more than just unload the lumber truck. By the way, this was the entire house lumber, because lumber prices were going up, so I think about 3 weeks before we actually started this project, we took delivery of the lumber. You guys all know how crazy lumber prices got spring of 2021 into early summer of 2021. Anyway, in this video, we're going to cover squaring and snapping lines for the mud sill. Then we're going to frame our pony walls in the crawl space. That's right, we work on a crawl space here. And I'll go into a little bit of what we did differently this time than we normally do. And we're going to roll joists and get the floor framed. So buckle up, because it's the safe thing to do. Okay, so that was with me not even setting anything.
So, showing
This is the Stabila, that's right, that's the correct pronunciation. The Stabila LA180 laser layout station. If you've watched our previous videos, you've seen it. I am really good at adjusting the dial and locking it in very quickly. We square all of our mudsill using the laser. It minimizes walking back and forth, and we always know that it's dead on the money. So that longest line was our reference point. We set the laser to that, then Kyle goes to the other end. Now let's just say, and in this case it was because that was the biggest square, but let's just say Kyle was a little off. Before we snap lines, then I can adjust the laser to what he wants me at, and then we would just go to the other side and remark that. As it was, we didn't even need to do that. The basic principle of square and parallel is that now that we have our biggest square, that's a 90-degree angle, then that means all north-south lines are parallel off the back, and all east-west lines are parallel off the side. Because our first angle was dead on the money, then that means every other wall that are parallel to each of those respective lines will also be dead on the money. Very simple. This is like the first thing I was taught when I came out, and I got to hold the dumb end of the tape, which is, by the way, a big responsibility, because that guy, anyway, you know why. He always has to hold it exactly the same way, otherwise things can get way off. So there we are with the 100-foot tape. Kyle and I just work our way across the foundation. Once everything is laid out, then we snap all of our lines, and we are guaranteed perfectly square and parallel. But now, having said that, to achieve that, we're probably fudging numbers. So let's just say that front to back it was 44 feet. We might be 39 foot 11 and a half. We could be 40 foot 1/4 inch. We're gonna be parallel, but we're gonna make it look a little better on the foundation. Trust, hey, we know the foundation, guys. This is just what you have to do. They look a lot like us, and they work in the rain a lot. And so the framers just have to make up for the foundation guys. But it's the same people. The same guys did the foundation as the framing. That is the Dude Tools deep socket for impact drivers. It's like 80 bucks, it's not cheap, but we've had that for probably about 15 years. If you use an impact wrench or an impact driver, only go finger tight plus 1/3 to 1/2 turn. That's what the Simpson Strong Tie catalog says. So basically, once you feel it torque down, you're there. Stop. We used to need cords to do this kind of work, but not anymore. Pretty impressive if you ask me. Oh, how I love the Max High Pressure HN120 concrete nailer. These walls didn't need bolts. If they did, we'd be using bolts. So don't get too hot and bothered about that. I'm driving nails into concrete. So the Max High Pressure system, which you can read my review at JLC online, 500 PSI system. Yes, we can drive nails through wood into concrete or even steel. Since all of my layout is coming off that back wall, the same wall that we previously laid out off of, I want my interior shear walls to be able to stack. So that's all I'm doing here. Happy Tuesday, everybody. So here's what we did differently this time. Normally, we pour pier pads. I think I covered that in the previous video. We went with strip footings this time. It is stronger. It's a little bit more concrete, but it's a whole lot easier for everybody. It also meant that we could use up all of our footing boards. So they got used one time for footings. Now they go into our walls. So we save a step by not having to pack those out of there. So what we do is we run string lines, dry lines specifically, across the shorter walls first. And I go ahead and just take measurements. We could do it with a chalk line and touch the wood, but because all of our footing boards were different lengths, it was just easier for Kyle to set up a sawhorses, and we just measure them to fit. Really simple. You can see the process. He knows what I need as I go. There's really nothing to this except for make sure that your walls stack or your studs align with above. Now I have a shear wall there. That's what I'm working on in this particular video clip. So the reason I waited on that was now I can run a dry line from the existing pony wall to the front foundation and go ahead and dial that in. That's just one way to keep everything nice and flat. We had, I forget how many shear walls in this crawl. I mean, you're gonna see it, but basically as I work my way out, it made sense just to sheet the wall while we were there. I think it'll make sense as we go through the framing. If you're not familiar with shear walls, basically those carry the lateral loads from the roof all the way down through the foundation to the strip footing. It's what we have to do here in earthquake country. Side to side, the 42 foot of the building, but then we run one about the center point front to back, and we cut a stud at 3/16 high because the strings are going to sag somewhat. In fact, here, let me show you a clip. Down. Kyle just works his way through the cut list. I go ahead and put Nervistral, which is a PVC membrane, and I drape it from the mudsill over the concrete, and that way our Doug fir top plates can butt nice and tight to the concrete but be separated by a barrier. So Kyle's just kind of keeping track of the scrap and the smaller pieces that came out of our footing boards, and then I just work my way toenailing, and then to let him get ahead, I go ahead and grab top plates, I lay them out, and basically you can see that he and I've worked together for so long that neither of us really stops. We just kind of leapfrog and overlap each other. It's partially my job too, as he's in the mode cutting, Shane's drilling for Simpson Strong-Tie Titan bolts for those shear walls, is I'm also keeping track of making sure layout stacks and also tracing all of the point loads. And so everybody's got their job, we just keep working. Enjoy Kyle's whatever that was, R&B, retro R&B playlist. I don't know. It is a beautiful spring day, that's for sure. I guess I should probably explain a little bit better what we're doing. So these are called pony walls, at least in our area. You can see in the back though, we did have one girder and post. That's how we normally frame our floors. And then they have to be positively connected to the pier pad through hardware. It is way easier to do the strip footings. It's more productive for us, we save a step. Whatever we have extra in concrete and rebar, we more than make up for in labor. Structurally speaking, those walls did not need to be 2x6. In this case, it's just a rambler or a single-story house, but it allowed us to use up those footing boards, as I mentioned. The major advantage is that it's a lot easier to walk these walls when we're blocking. It also gives a little bit more bearing to the floor joists. So as I work my way down with the double top plate, and I'm kind of pulling it, you can see how I'm pulling it straight. Kyle just knows to stay ahead, take the measurement that I'm gonna need. You can see the order now that the big parallel walls are done. Now I have a better reference point to do these little interior shear walls that align with shear walls above on the floor. So yeah, it is a little complicated to be the foundation / framer, but then again, it's a lot easier to be the foundation framer because we're taking care of all of that. Those walls, by the way, are going to get sheeted. For those of you eagle-eyed, astute observers, you have probably figured out that we're framing 24 inches on center. We have been framing 24 on center, which is a form of advanced framing or optimum value engineering. If you Google OVE framing, you'll find it. It's been around for many, many years. We learned about it in construction class back in the mid-90s. And at that point, it was already like 30 years old. Anyway, you cannot tell that this is 24 on center when all the finishes are in, but it is a whole lot easier to get in and out between those pony walls. All of the studs, by the way, are gonna align, so it's a straight shot through for any of the trades like the plumbers or the insulators. Oh, and by the way, I should mention, because we get wet, there's no vapor barrier on the ground, and you'll notice that we sheet the floor before there's any insulation or plumbing in. That's the standard here. Way back in the 80s, my dad said when they first started, they would go, hey, let's be smart and put the vapor barrier down now. Then it would rain and then it would be a puddle and you'd have to pump out the water and dry it all out. So once the roof is on, that's when insulation and vapor barrier goes down. But anyway, back to the 24-inch on center. It means a little less wood in the house without a loss of strength or performance. But a big part of that is then all of your loads need to trace, and your rafters, floor joists, studs, pony wall studs, all of that needs to align. Kyle, would you say that I'm like 12 feet in the air?
Yeah, I would say at least.
At least 12 feet? And we can base that off of that 4-foot sheet of zip on its side. Boom. So even though our mudsill was set to a snap line, I always like to go through and snap layout. Then we'll pull our joist spacing all the way across the floor. If there's any variations, we just reset. Everybody, I just came in late because I had a dermatologist appointment. And he said I look amazing for a construction worker. No joke. So wear your hats and sunscreen. But anyway, check out what Kyle got done. He got like the whole floor framed, and it's only not even 10 o'clock.
That's what happens, dude.
I was taught that the fastest way to block, and we've tried all these different methods, this really is the most efficient, is to pre-cut all of your blocks, go put them all in place. Notice how they're all leaning in the same direction like dominoes. Then go through and knock in all of your blocks. In this case, I'm aligned with the back of that pony wall. You can snap a line, whatever you want to do. I probably did snap a line just to make it look straight. As I get older, it's a little harder for me to keep this stuff straight. Anyway, get on the joist with nothing but your hammer and nail bags, go through and knock them all into place and align them. Then grab your nail gun and come back and nail them all at once. It's a lot less back and forth movement. You just keep moving in the same direction, and that's how you gain the efficiency. Whenever somebody doesn't believe me, then I challenge them to a race. And even though I'm twice Shane's age, I'm 10 times faster. Do the math. There is the bird's eye view, or the drone's eye view, get it? Of the floor completely framed and 100% ready to get subfloor. You might notice there's a couple of sections where we added some joist, and that just has to do with the tile backer. It's the master bath and utility room. The extra 24-inch on center, depending on your sheathing thickness, can affect the tile backer requirements, so we add a few extra joists. Time to sheathe the floor. Kyle started that day out somewhere else, so Shane and I got the first 2 rows on. And now it is pure production. Turn up the music, everybody knows their job. This floor went a little slower because I was testing the Strong Tie Quick Drive versus the Fasten Master PAMFast versus the Pass Load Tetra Grip. But you can see that video in my feed comparing the best methods for fastening subfloor. What I'm gonna show off here, yes, no bending over to pick up that beater board. Thanks to the guy, can't remember who you are, but thank you. It was here on YouTube, the opposite of a troll. He's like, hey, to avoid bending over, why don't you just scab on a 2x6 or 2x4? And it was like, why don't we? How come I never thought of that in 20 years of, well, 25 years of doing this? Anyway, don't bend over, guys. Just scab on a piece of 2x6 to your beater board. Work harder, no, work smarter, not harder. Yeah, work smarter, not harder. I think as framers, sometimes we might do it the opposite.
Okay. 12 and 9 to the center.
Okay.
And 3 inches from the side. You guys are doing great.
I'll put the link in the description below, but did you see how the cage on the forklift tilted 90 degrees? Actually, it swings 180, 90 each way, off of straightforward. Man, has that been a nice feature. Okay, here's the process for our kitchen rake wall, which is not a symmetrical rake wall. You'll see how that goes in just a moment. I like to tack the laid out bottom plate to the line. We figure out the height of our end studs, including heel stand, minus double top plates. That'll become apparent here in a moment. We check each other, and we make sure that that end stud is nice and square. We also measure and locate at each end of our rake wall where the rake starts. That's essentially equal to the plumb line on your bird's mouth on a rafter. Then we calculate the rafter length, and from that mark, we scribe an arc. Normally where the arcs would cross each other would perfectly locate the center of the ridge, but as you're gonna see, right where I'm standing is essentially the ridge line. In this case, that wall on the right interrupts our rake wall, and that's gonna become apparent in a little bit. Since we're snapping out the skeleton of the rake wall to the top and outsides of the wall plane, top of the roof plane, we then measure 3 1/8 and we snap the underside of the double top plate, since that's what all of our framing members are going to get measured to. It also helps us to keep everything nice and straight, which is kind of the whole point, right? We're trying to save time building big walls, but we also want them to be nice and straight and flat. There we snapped out the ridge column because inevitably, even if it's a glue lamp column, we have to adjust it. It's not perfectly straight. So now it's time to get going. Remember, Kyle had already calculated the end studs to the short point. He also has calculated the top plates. So we're gonna frame that whole skeleton and then tack everything nice and straight. And that's why the end stud being square to the bottom plate is so essential, is because after that, framing members just need to be parallel to that end, and they'll be perfectly square to the bottom plate, which of course means that they'll be dead plumb. That's the process in a nutshell. Now, you could pre-calculate all of this. I've done it. You could draw it on SketchUp. I've done it. It never works out as well as measuring in the field because none of our lumber is perfect. It's never perfect. And so what we've learned is generally we'll measure the middle stud on layout and we'll use the math plus and minus to go up and down the rake. So from that middle one, we'll calculate all of the studs longer and shorter. In this case, because we're giving Shane some practice, we went ahead and measured all of the framing members. Almost always the king studs on either side of the window are doubled for stiffness on that wall during lift. One thing to note on this house is we had the engineer redesign so that we're using single ply 1 3/4 by 9.5 inch LVLs as our headers. Now, if you've read Fine Home Building or the Journal of Light Construction for any period of time, you know that a structural header in a rake wall like this is unnecessary. But we've had the county come in and tell us to add one, and the engineer just rolls his eyes and we do it. So now we just leave it in place because it's one less thing for us to deal with at framing inspection. Once all the studs are in, king studs, trimmers, double top plates are finished, all of that good stuff, now it's time to start fire blocking and blocking for panel edges. So at our ceiling line, which is about 9'1", 109 1/8, we always use 4x6 blocking. So that's what Shane's doing right there. 4x6 blocking is not necessary for fire stop, but it really does keep the wall a lot stiffer as we lift it. The rest of it is all out of scrap 2x6, whatever's left over from all the rake wall cutting. Those are all installed on the flat. So you're facing the 5.5 inch edge. And then every 8 feet, we put another row of blocking. I'm gonna go into this in a future video with the installation details, but the structural panels here is Huber's Zip R6 panel. So it's the normal structural sheathing attached to 1 inch of R6 polyiso. Okay, so you can see the foam there with the panel bonded. So I just used a longer router bit with a flush cutting bearing. This is our old Makita router that we never use anymore, but we used it here because the 1/2 inch collet didn't fit in our cordless routers. Shane's at the end of like 200 feet of cord, so that motor was running pretty slow. Something worth mentioning is that as we installed that 4x6 blocking, every couple blocks we would double check to make sure that those studs are on layout, because there's nothing worse than a big wall where your panels don't break right on the studs. That's happened way too many times. We like to work together to get most of the sheets down, openings routed, etc., get things tacked. And then one person breaks off and starts nailing, the other person breaks off and just finishes up all those odd sizes. Kyle here is explaining to Greg how just the week before he had been in the porta potty and got stung in the worst place you can get stung by not one, but 2 bees. So with that in mind, I'm just gonna leave this kind of muted, at least as far as Kyle telling the story. And now that you know what they're talking about, you can just watch the body language. When it comes to nailing off all that acreage of shear panels, 6-inch on center everywhere since we're 24-inch on center for our studs, Kyle is very systematic, as you can see. Up, down, up, down.
Technically,
In that, I mean, if it's the same pitch, then that's my diagonal, and I can just cut a piece and then just fill it in.
Yeah, that would be a plumb cut, but this would be
A C.
double plumb minus 90.
Okay. So I'll go 30 inches.
30.
30.
30 inches.
30.
Spoilers.
The angle worked perfectly. And who doesn't love a River Song reference? While Kyle finishes up this particular area, Shane, you can see, is already blowing off the wall to make sure that there's no dust, and then he's taping all of those seams. That's part of Zip Systems. So check the description below if you don't know anything about that. Basically, the green panels have the weather-resistant barrier on it, and then we tape all the seams, increases air tightness, keeps the water out, all that good stuff. Kyle is just grabbing scrap, and this is really the beauty of the router, besides the fact that it's idiot-proof. And we need as many things to be idiot-proof on our job sites as possible. It makes it super easy to use up scrap. There's no measuring and cutting. You just grab the router and it follows the framing underneath. But you definitely want straight framing below because it's going to telegraph right through the sheathing. Of course, it's not good enough to just apply the tape. Make sure that you roll the tape, the acrylic adhesives in that bond with the panel. While Kyle and Shane were on the other side framing and sheeting that rake wall that you've been watching, you can see them in the back there, I've been framing this wall by myself because it's a small wall and even I can do it. All of our panel edges on our wall sheathing have to be blocked. So I grab all the 2x6 scrap and I cut it in place. Notice I leave the base plate loose and I use the front edge of the base plate to be square, or really technically parallel with the edge of the blocking. And then I just plunge. And you can see how easy that is. All those blocks fit just right because they fall in place. If they were too long, they wouldn't. That one might have been a little tight, but you get the point. So leave your speed square in your bag, leave your pencil in your bags, leave your tape measure in your bags, grab your scrap or long stock, however you want to do it, just line it up and cut it in place. This is very fast, and with a little bit of practice, it's every bit as accurate as if you actually did use all those other tools. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that we like to frame our garage walls on the floor and put them in place. That's really the first walls we frame. While Kyle and Shane were working on the bigger rake wall, I went ahead and built this wall. Whenever you move walls like this around the job site, go nice and slow. We know that we're not way over capacity. That's a very small, lightweight wall. My job as the operator is to keep the machine moving nice and slow so that it doesn't whip the wall around at the guys. Also keep it level because that is not a level job site. Watching out for traffic behind me, and then sneaking things around. Notice Kyle's doing all the signaling. Shane is the extra pair of hands. Obviously, we've done this a few times. There it is. Nice and simple. Nice, simple, and safe. The only negative thing I would say about having a truss jib is just you got to find a place to put it. So we just earmarked that third bay of the garage. That's where the truss jib went whenever we weren't using it. One thing you should always do when you build your overhangs on the rake wall is use any kind of metal strap across that joint. It helps the overhangs to stay together and not spread. In this case, I'm using the Strong Tie CS HP coil strap because that's what we have. A little Hurricane Clips beat flat will work too. Honestly, lumber banding strap will work, whatever you have. Our way of building overhangs is everything's out of 2x6. This is 12-inch soffit, so we make the overhangs 12 1/4, just so that we have a little bit of room to play. Soffits get framed. The soffit board itself, the LP Smart Side gets installed. 16-foot lengths really help to keep the wall stiff. And then we're using Smart Side 5/4 by fly rafter trim. So Shane and I lifted the rake wall a couple of weeks ago. This particular rake wall was a side pick. We just didn't have the room on the property to go perpendicular to the wall. So you notice I'm up on the flat spot because it's pretty hilly. You can't really tell it from the video, but there's quite a bit of slope there. So being up on the flat spot is just a lot safer. I knew I was going to have to drive forward and turn in. What Shane's eyeballing is the tension on each leg of the strap. He wants them to stay roughly equal. So as I go forward, the pivot point on the boom, on the truss jib there, is going to start to go past where we want it to. So then he booms me in. And you see how the wall just kind of settles back straight? It doesn't matter if the wall comes off the floor. We're rigged like about 6 times the weight of that wall, right? 3,000-pound wall, and we're rigged for 12,000 pounds, 4 times. So it's not a big deal if it comes off, but it's just easier for us if it stays on the line. Then all we have to do is kind of nail it down or screw it down. So my job is to be very soft with the controls, knowing that I'm going to boom up, I'm going to turn, and I'm going to lean to stay level. Once we get to the top, Shane's going to eyeball how far we need to go. We're so close that all I have to do is lean the machine, and it just goes right up against that other garage wall, which was already standing. And that's it. Now when it comes to bracing, many years ago we had a wall go flying off in high winds. I had actually gone out there and added more bracing. I don't know if it was a microburst or what it was, but it just ripped it off the floor, left the bottom plate, just ripped the bottom of the studs. So we structurally screw all of our braces on tall walls. They don't come out until you want them to come out. And when you want them to come out, they come out nice and easy. So easy to put up, easy to take down. Shane's using a laser plumb bob, and we're pushing the wall about 1/4 of an inch out of plumb, just to make room for any other walls that come up. Once that brace is locked in, then we go to the other end. We typically always do the ends of the walls first, and then intermediate braces. And I've got a little tutorial that I'll put together on how it is that we brace those intermediates. Super easy. You just want long material. Keep your bracing about 45 degrees, but I'll go into that. The laser plumb bob is your friend in this case. Remember, get forklift certified, practice, go slow, be gentle with the controls. This is called the Qualcraft Big Peavey. You've probably seen them around. If you haven't, it's a great tool. They're pretty cheap online. I'll put the description below. Basically, it just gives you a little bit of leverage. In that case, I still had to use my hammer because that's a big, heavy wall. Pull it right to the line using leverage. Usually they pull a little bit easier, but one thing to note too is I'm not having to pull far. That wall stayed right on the line. Good operating Big T. In this video, I wanted to show one way to lift a wall with a forklift that doesn't involve rigging. Now, we generally only use this for small walls like this. I think it's like 15 feet long, 9 foot tall. After you frame the wall, you've sheathed it, all that good stuff, set it on blocks so that you can sneak the forks under the header. Now notice that as I sneak the forks under the header, I'm gonna tilt up, I'm gonna boom up at the same time as I keep tilting. And then as I go up, I don't want the cage up against the header because it could tear the header out of the wall. I know a guy that's done that. So basically, as I went up, I boomed in and kept tilting up. And now the wall's nice and cradled. Once it's in the air, now I can go through and I can pop the toenails out. I can cut out that door butt. Something to keep in mind is just to always try to combine as many steps into the same step, just to keep life simple. So I know I'm gonna cut out that door buck at some point. In fact, I had already run my saw through it, so it was half cut out. But it's like, why not just cut out the door buck now? And now I'm done with it. Nobody's gonna trip on that going in and out of the house. Second, I don't have to worry about those walls flaring because I laid my plates out exactly on the line. So as long as they're on those lines on each end, nothing's gonna change. It's gonna stay nice and square. Earlier, you noticed that I put the seatbelt on, but I was still wearing my nail bags. It's just a hassle, so take your nail bags off if you're getting back in the machine. Here's the same lesson. I'm getting everything prepped so that when I lift that wall, I can immediately connect it. Ladder's in place, impactor's in place. I've got the structural screw in my nail bags. So now I'm gonna go ahead and move the wall exactly where it needs to go, but everything is ready for me to just basically instantly get it all connected together. I know I can easily slide the bottom, so I tend to lean the top in when it's touching, and then with that pressure I can always take the sledgehammer and beat the bottom over. In this case, once it rested up against that rake wall and I lowered it, it was nice and tight. Or it was close enough for me to dial in, which you'll see here momentarily.
That's so awesome.
So why did we build this garage wall last? Basically, it's so that we could push against the two garage walls. Well, push is the wrong word. We could rest it against and connect them. If we had done it first, it would just be there in no man's land, and then we'd have to put up braces and work around them. So if we drop the sidewalls in, we put this wall last, it's got something to connect to, it's nice and safe, and now we're done with the garage. And there's all of the exterior walls framed. Now we're still gonna get into some of this in the next video because I've got a bunch of footage on wall layout, but then we'll also get into those back walls and the big rake wall on the side and kind of what our whole process was. How did the walls fit together? Now you can see that kitchen wall, by the way, that it is gonna return and match the front slope of the other big rake wall, but then it had to return to match that garage wall. So there's a whole lot to it. It's just a big jigsaw puzzle, right? It all just hinges on planning. You know, which walls do you have room for, etc. You notice in the one gable we'd put some siding on. I'm gonna cover all of that in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Like I said before, and it's in the description, we don't show the best way to do anything. We just show the way we do it. It works well, but it's a constant refinement, and that's what keeps it fun. So thank you very much for watching. If there's something of value here, please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, and leave a comment below if there's something that you saw that could be refined even better. We all make each other better. Thank you, guys. Hey, is there anything you guys would like to say to those in the rest of the country that are getting snow right now?
Nobody cares.
Man, look at that guy go. Hey, Kyle, what do you think of Shane's abilities?
What?
Look at me, Neutron.
It's Glenn Flake from the 80s. Anybody get that reference?
80s.
You're cool if you get the Glenn Flake reference. You ever look in the mirror and think, man, you're so cool? And then something happens that tells you you're not? Prefab for the win. That wing wall fits. But like an idiot, I read my 142.11 as a 140.11. So that wall is 2 inches off. Man. Okay, so you're gonna carry two?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna demonstrate how much lighter Zip R is than regular Zip. Way lighter. All day long. Oh gosh.
I'm sorry. I did not want to break.
For my bits, I have 2 neodymium magnets. I'm pretty sure I said that right. There's one between the belt and the pouch, and then one on this side of the pouch. It's extremely strong magnets. Still there. Still bits in there.
All right, so this is part 2 of the Lakeshore exterior wall framing, and we're gonna get into interior walls for part 1, click above. Basically, as you saw at the end of the last video, we had all of our exterior walls up, and we showed some of the rake walls being built off on one part of the floor and then brought in. Now we're showing the biggest part of the wall. So let me just go right to the layout. Now normally when I frame a rake wall, I frame it from outside to outside. In this case, I decided to frame it 5.5 short because the wall that intersects this, we had already framed standard height and went and set it off to the side. Essentially what we like to do is build walls where we have room, go move them, then build the biggest wall, lift it, and then the other walls are ready to drop into place, and that just kind of shortens some of the bracing. So 5.5 inches short. Then I use 16-foot material because it tends to be a little straighter. It's never perfect, that's okay. Now, because all of my layout starts from an outside corner, I just throw a block there. And I'm using this little Milwaukee 100-foot tape that I bought at Home Depot. And I stretch it out because that's gonna tell me the total length of the wall. It's also gonna show me where the studs go, but I always lay out studs last. The reason for that is it drives me nuts when I lay out windows. And I already have marks. So windows get laid out first. Now, make sure that on these big walls, you get the window centered, or whatever your layout is, correctly. I know some guys, me, that have done that wrong, and it's a hassle to fix. And the reason is because we're building generally double king studs and we're nailing the crap out of them for the lift itself. You know, we're building these walls to be structurally right when they're in place. But secondary to that is we build them a little stronger than they need to for the lift itself. So even though I've already checked center, I did the math with the calculator. Now that I've got my trimmers essentially marked, I double check those that make sure that it's centered in the room. I do this often enough, or I should say I make a mistake often enough that I just double check everything a few times.
All right, are we forgetting anything?
Probably.
Braces are in, anchors are on. If you do that, you can fill mine up. Like, you can drag sweep in. And then you are gonna get so many chicks in that thing. He is set up. What's he set up?
I have things.
I could last another hour.
Just as an FYI, that giant glue lamb will be this header. So I'm actually gonna double the trimmers. Wait, what am I doing wrong here? There we go.
And your satellite picture. Getting ready, Finn. So we might as well swim. How about yours? Yeah, Mikey, that'll never get me. And if you're not doing water, you please build that guy. Kind of as you can build it there or wherever.
I'm getting there. Okay, so earlier I showed the 100-foot tape. That just showed where layout was. Once I get one layout, then I just use this Bigfoot layout stick that we've had since like 2005. It's a little bit bent, but it always works. You can see it in previous videos. It's cheap. It's just, I think, 30 bucks. I don't know, I haven't bought one in 15 years. So you notice though that we are framing 24 inches on center. That is deliberate. We are using the optimum value engineered. Maybe I'll try to put a link in the description. Basically, It's trying to minimize unnecessary wood in a wall. And so we frame 2 foot on center. Just make sure that your studs are straight.
We can do, Kyle. I could hold this guy also back 5.5. So like that one down there, you're gonna cut the stud taller.
Correct. Got the number already.
But we could do the same thing here. And I could go,
Yeah.
this would be the end of our wall. You know, sometimes, I know we've had to cut these out before, it's kind of a hassle. But this time we have an LVL shooting across instead of a beam because Terry engineered it. So if that caps this end stud,
So to sit on the flat wall and like,
Yeah.
and like nail in.
we would be flat from here to here,
Right.
which I think I could cut plates now, but might just cut them after the fact. Whatever we want to do. There's really no studs. It would be a 6x6. It doesn't need to be a 6x6. It's just studs, like a double stud.
Yeah. Because it's just carrying a single ply LVL.
So I'm 5.5 short to the short of the stud.
Correct.
This line is the 5.5 short to the short. So your studs would be the same. And then your top plates also, instead of 42 foot, 1/2, they would be minus 11 divided by 2.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that way they come right to the edge. We can square it.
Right.
Then this is going to go up. The other wall will cap it. This wall will come in. This wall will cap it.
Okay. So this would be the regular stud.
That would be your...
This is going to be the minus 5.5.
Correct.
So this will be the same as the other one
Yes.
down there. Okay. So 116 and 11 is my number.
And I'll do this to make that a little more obvious.
Okay.
But when we actually frame, we'll add stud, stud, stud.
Correct.
Okay, is that clear as mud? Hopefully not. Essentially, each end of the rake wall, instead of being an outside of building to outside of building, it's going to butt those walls. And that's why it's 5.5 short on each side. That made it a little simpler to frame the wall because the top plates are identical. Those end studs, it's easy to do the math, make them identical. Now Kyle and Shane can essentially snap out the wall because they're longer than our plate material. Nice straight line. They tack that to the wall, nice and straight. I mean, think about that. Our trusses aren't perfect, our rafters aren't perfect, but we can make the top plates of this wall basically perfect, or perfect-er. Let's make that the new term. They're perfect-er than the rafters that we would have used instead of the wall because they're framed to the snap line. What Kyle and Shane are doing is they're laying out the underside of those top plates to directly align with my layout on the bottom plates. So we always start with the king studs. Same thing as layout, we want to start with the windows first. Then after that, we usually find a stud that's about mid-height. Once that one's marked, you see that's what Shane and Kyle are doing right now, is they use the math on the calculator and they lay out their studs. What we find with that is that your studs end up, you can trust the math, and we do that all the time. In this case, it's just to give Shane some practice and get him used to the repetition. But we could find that center stud, calculate the stud height difference, subtract and add, and then one guy can just do it on a list. But in this case, it's here's the thing. You can do this the fastest way possible, or because you're saving so much time building a big wall, you can slow down just a little bit to make sure that you don't goof it up. So that's kind of like, then the whole time that you're kind of maybe duplicating a step, it's a way to kind of check yourself. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. You knew that was coming. While they're doing that, I went ahead and started cutting off of a different pile, trimmer heights, sills, cripple studs, and I think I even started to cut headers. And because the windows are kind of the slowest part, that's always where we start. They often get double king studs and we oppose the crowns, and that way that as you oppose the crowns, you straighten out both boards, blah, blah, blah. Of course, I didn't get the rest of the time lapse. I apologize for that. I thought I got a sheeting. Anyway, so now we're doing the overhang for that wall. For us, we always go with the 2x6 nailed to the wall. Then we go with little cripple studs, haphazardly nailed, doesn't matter, but we shoot for like 4 to 6 foot on center. You're gonna see why in just a minute. It doesn't matter. and then 2x6 top plates. Once all of that's done and the wall is sided, then we brace those square to the wall. Those braces stay in until the roof is sheeted, and generally until we get back up on the wall to side if we need to side. Otherwise, we just get on a ladder, pop up there and pull them off. After we've sheeted, after the roofers have been up there, and those overhangs are rock solid. In our climate zone, we use 16-foot lengths of the, I think it's 3/8, or maybe it's 7/16, I think it's 3/8 by 16-foot LP soffit. That's what gives this wall a lot of stiffness. The double top plates, the overhang framing, and then when we nail that, it's nailed 6 inches on center, so it acts like a strong back, stiffens up that wall, keeps it nice and straight. As long as we put a brace here and there for plumb, that wall is perfectly straight. Adding our fly rafters or our trim material is easy. We really like this pass load 16 gauge nailer. That's what we nail all of our exterior trim on. Read the manufacturer's instructions, that is allowed. Okay, that is allowed, but go look it up. If I remember when I finally post this video, it can be a little hard to find that. Maybe I'll reach out to the rep and put it in the description below. So, overhangs are on the wall. It takes about 20 minutes. Now on this side of the wall, notice on the bottom left, that was the flat spot that Kyle and I were just talking about. Then it goes up a little higher for the heel stand or height above plate on the rafter, and then it rakes. I always cut a little pattern rafter and nail it because that allows me to dial in this overhang. See how easy that works? Idiot proof it, don't do any math. Math has its place, but if you make a mistake with math, it's really a nightmare. Versus, essentially, scribe and cut. So there it is. That little piece of soffit will go on later after the roofers are done. We want to leave a piece of the roof sheathing off so that they have access. You want to be good to the trades that follow you. Scratch their back, they scratch your back. So it's just treat others the way they would like to be treated and the way you would like to be treated. Hey, that's a novel idea, isn't it? Again, primed the cut ends. You can see the paint there. Shane just nails it all off with the 16 gauge nailer. Now we are ready to install our belly band. That's what we call them. Now here's what's a little different on this house. We had some 2.5-inch metal bent. We nail on a bunch of scrap pieces to basically fur out. So the trim that we're putting on is 5/4 by 8 or 5/4 by 10, I don't remember. You can't buy 2x material, but what we like to do is put a layer of wood under the trim so that we can tuck our siding. That will become apparent later. If we use up scrap 2x, you could also use up layers of scrap, ripped sheeting if you had it, whatever. Now we're 2.5 inches from the zip to the face of the outside face of the trim. That gives us 1.5 inches to tuck, and it looks better for the shadow line. So see there, everything was snapped nice and straight, parallel to the bottom plate. We already know that that's level because we did the concrete work and we've already checked concrete. Now we just shoot across with our trim board. Kyle's shooting across with the metal itself. And then one of us is going to shoot across, taping the metal to the zip, and then one guy is going to roll that tape. It's just an assembly line. See how we all kind of leapfrog each other? Big walls allow you to spread out. You can work together without working right over the top of each other. You get a lot done. Perfectly straight. Now it's time to side the gable, and spoilers, this only took 20 minutes. So Kyle's cutting in place. He's basically keeping track of what Shane and I need as we nail. See how he's staying ahead of us? Shane and I, in the meantime, are going to go ahead and we're going to snap top lines all the way across. And that way, it takes like 5 minutes. That way we're not pulling out our tape measure except to take some random lengths here and there, but it also allows us to line that SmartSide 16-foot siding and keep it perfectly straight. After that, it's just production. Once we get a little closer to the top, we'll take a bottom mark. Kyle can calculate the differences. He can cut them all. Shane and I will go into like cleanup mode. We'll start caulking what needs to be caulked, staging, etc. So you gain a ton of efficiency building the wall this way. We didn't have windows, or we would have set the windows too. So that's always our goal, but with COVID, it has really messed up some of our scheduling. But hey, it's a one-story house. Not the hardest thing in the world to hang windows later. So all of the raked pieces get put up against the soffit, but we always cover that joint with what we call shadow fascia, and it's like 1x6 or 1x8. so your cuts don't have to be perfect. There you go. It's done. Now it's time to lift the wall. I have a separate video here on the channel on how to safely lift this wall, and it gets into all of the rigging and how we go about doing it. Suffice to say for this video, by the way, I was a little constrained by a low voltage power line, so that was about as high as I could go and had to make the rest up with the truss jib. That wall is lifted using brackets that are custom engineered, custom fabricated. We keep those drawings in case the safety police show up. We can show them that. We have shown them those brackets before. They are each rated to lift far more than the heaviest wall we've ever lifted, so we're generally lifted for about 4 times the weight. Now, one thing to know though, is as the wall goes up, as long as it stays on the floor, the forklift will see, so to speak, less weight as the wall goes up. Now, whenever we lift these, Kyle uses the laser to plumb the wall. We use our longest material, 2x6, and we use structural screws. The reason for that is they are far stronger than nails. We've had a wall blow off about, 11 or 12 years ago. Had a microburst come through. I had already gone out, put more braces on the wall. It ripped them all right out. So we use the structural screws, and we install those braces where we won't need to frame walls later. You can see we had the front rake wall ready to go. That's why that side rake wall was framed 5.5 inches short. So as soon as we're up and braced, we can go grab the other wall, drop in place, tie them together. That means the end is now braced. And we do the same thing with all the empty space below. On the very bottom right of your screen, there's another rake wall ready to go in. And you can also see that we've got that little 2-foot wall that the sheathing is hanging out 5.5 inches to catch the wall that we're gonna set. So I think that all makes sense if you look at it. Rewatch that clip a couple times if you don't, but basically there's the process. At this point, it was time for lunch. After lunch, we decided since all the walls were installed, let's go ahead and finish up all of the sheeting from the block line down to the mud sill. Now to do that, we used up scrap, but the quickest way to break down your sheet goods is with a track saw. In this case, I'm using Zip R6, so 1 inch of polyiso foam with the 7/16 inch panel. So you can see how quickly I roll through those rips. We laid out the block so that all of our rips would be 24 inches or slightly less to get as much out of the sheets as we could. If you don't have this tool, I highly recommend it. I find it to be more efficient. I get perfectly straight cuts. Great tool. Now I'm taping the underside of the foam just to keep that foam protected since it projects from the foundation. Kyle's nailing it off from the block line to the mud sill. Now, what I want to show off here, this is new for us last year. It's a Sidewinder carriage that rotates, and it has given us so much more maneuverability out of the forklift. You have to watch, though, how it affects the balance, so you don't want to do it with the load way up in the air. But down low like that, Kyle just brings in all of our 2x4 plates, drops it into a window, it's out of our way on the inside. Now I can just grab material and go through and start laying out interior walls. I always use 16 foot, and then I keep track of the scrap as I go. And you will notice, this might cause some controversy, as they say in the UK sometimes. Probably never, just made that up. I cut all of my interior wall plates the same length. I don't overlap and underlap anywhere. The reason I do that is because as I go up the ladder when I frame walls, and you'll see that in a moment, I'm gonna go ahead and strap them. I have to strap them to the exterior wall, so my thinking is I'll just do it on the inside, and then I can just use my 10 1/4 inch saw to cut them right over the line, perfectly identical at one time. Now, as I go through and lay out interior walls, I tip one of them down because that doesn't need to be layout. I always mark my partitions. We took all of the time at wall, when we snapped out wall layout, to make sure everything was square and parallel. My job now is to make sure that the bottom and top plates are exactly the same as what's on the floor. And then essentially, when I add studs, it's like it extrudes vertically whatever my wall height is, if that makes any sense. That means that technically the top of my top plates should be a carbon copy of what's snapped out in the bottom plates. So the way I do that is cut everything in place. I don't really cut anything interior wall-wise off of the plans. I lay it all out in place. I always start with doors, then I come through and I add for studs. Studs are always last so that they don't confuse me when I'm laying out. When I'm laying out doors and windows and things like that. I'm easily confused, so I need to have steps in place to basically not make that an issue. Now, line up your layout stick over a seam, because we know a seam is going to be a layout. Our joists and studs stack. That's why if all layout pulls from the same wall east-west and from the same wall north-south, nice and easy. I have the job site to myself. So this year we started to use a tablet for our blueprints, which I'm loving. Thank you, Ben Morton, for that suggestion. It's a Samsung 7, Galaxy 7. Anyway, I like to lay out all 3 plates, bottom plate, top plate, and double top plate at the same time. You'll kind of see how that works. That's the Bigfoot layout stick that we've had for about 15 years. I mark all of my stud layout with that. 24 on center on this house. I like to lay out plates over the snap lines because we took all the care to make sure those were square and parallel, and so I can't really mess it up if I just do it in place. The 10 1/4 inch cordless beam cutting saw is perfect for this because I can cut them on edge. Just slightly lift them up or set the depth so you're not scoring the floor, either way. I always cut the plates to center on a stud. I don't think that's actually a code requirement any longer, but old habits. And as I go, the other advantage of the 16 footers is that I can keep track of all of my scrap as I go. Shorty pieces get thrown under the sawhorse. Those will get cut for like little cripple blocks or whatever. The other advantage of this is the floor stays clean. I'm not tripping on anything. This is also why I like to do this alone. Now you're probably wondering, if I'm cutting all 3 plates exactly the same length, then how do we connect our walls if there's no overlaps and underlaps? We connect them with straps. I'll get to that later. I find it to be way more efficient to just cut all of my plates at the same time to the same length. We strap all of our exterior walls, or interior walls, to the exterior walls anyway, because so many of them are balloon framed. This really does speed things up. If you have an apprentice make a mistake one time, he has to get on a ladder and rip that plate off, especially if it's an exterior wall, what's the point? We're using straps to connect our houses, the floors to each other, to hold downs. We strapped collectors. Basically, we can't build houses without straps anymore because of seismic and hurricane requirements. So why not just extend the principle? So you see now that was my last one. It's just a doorway going into the master bedroom. Take one last look around. Did I miss anything? But the floor's basically clean. Sawhorses are in a decent spot. Kyle's got all the Kingstead trimmers made. Corners built, so that's it. This isn't the right way. It's not the wrong way. It's just the way I like to do it.
Glory to you! Glory to you! Take me there!
One thing I really love about interior wall framing is that everything is pretty lightweight, 2x4 studs, and pretty idiot-proof if we've done the layout right. Now we can just go to work. Generally, while I'm laying out plates, Kyle's cutting king studs and trimmers, nailing them together. He's cutting some door headers and cripples out of the scrap, so that by the time I'm done, he's done, and now we can just start framing walls. We communicate a little bit just to make sure that we don't end up, framing over the top of each other. But it's time to just turn up some good music and go to work. And I really like being able to just flip my brain off, listen to music, and go to work. It's kind of funny because on Instagram, a bunch of people were telling me I'm a hack because I have a single 2x4 as the header. Question: when there is no load above, do I need more than a 2x4 header structurally? And the answer is no. There's no reason to put it in structurally, especially when we have hollow core pre-hung doors. Top plates get put on. Remember, I had previously nailed them all, but notice on the left, my exterior wall I cut out of a 2x6 ripping down to 2x4 so that it would catch that wall. That's what I measured, stopped my double top plates. Now I can put the wall up, nail it all down to the floor, hop on a ladder. Now it's tied into the exterior wall, which, what did that hang in, about 6 feet? The advantage of that is right where I'm standing is actually a drywall braced wall. And here is the order of operations when I lift the wall. I nail the bottom plates down to the line. I use a laser and I adjust it. See, there's the laser dot. I toenail it to the block line from our exterior wall. And at the same time, I use the Simpson Strong Tie CSHP strap to tie those walls together. It is designed to be worked with your gun. Now, I never have to get on a ladder again.
I'm just looking. I'm looking at the laser.
Okay.
Just to make sure. Wait.
Cool.
No, it's not awkward at all. So I could do the same thing over here.
So what we like to do is brace walls off of braced walls up high so nothing's in the way as we work. Genius, right?
Yeah, that would be better.
That is right on the money.
Okay. Does that get gapped for a reason? We got a good quarter strong gap.
Oh, I think it moved. Do you have a 6-inch screw?
Yeah.
Do you have an impactor? All right, we're gonna fix that gap.
What?
Shane, when he wore the head mount, I watched video and listened to it, and he's talking the whole time. None of it's funny. It's like, I don't even know.
Nice, good enough. This stud's kind of sticking out,
Yeah.
so big deal.
Okay.
Sweet. So you got that. That's great.
Yeah, let me pop this brace. And then I might not have enough nails now.
I have nails right here.
Man, look at those skills.
Sweet camera skills.
Hey, Kyle. Okay, how many do I have? I have enough for now. Let me,
You know what you're doing? Ladder placement is key. I think go there.
now I'm out of
I don't think we're gonna move this easily unless we really wanted to.
No, because it's up against that garage wall too.
Right, yeah, so it's not. And it was tight when I peeked out there, so.
But we want to connect here.
Correct.
Okay.
Let's see, go like 80.
Yeah, that's when you're supposed to say,
Oh, what's super view?
no, you're supposed to say, you're not stupid.
Oh, you're definitely not. Okay. Me do this.
I might be able to push too. I've got a lot of leverage up here.
Okay, well, I'm ready to do it, so I'll do this. Ow. Right there. Good enough.
No, is it perfect enough? All right, that was a good day. It's 2 o'clock. I'm tired. But hey, we got all the walls done and put plumbing line. So all the interior walls are ready. We're plumbing line, so tomorrow we'll start setting beams and then ceiling joists and then maybe ridges, and then we're off next week to go camping. But there's something I want to show you guys. This has taken us a long time. I used to work with a guy who said you needed to have so many braces you couldn't walk around. 9 Danke, as they say in Germany. Look at how it's braced. So yep, that guy's in the way because it's a big wall. But then what we do is we connect as much across the top as we can two walls that are connected to sheathed walls. So as an example, this wall is connected to a wall that is not going to budge. Then we just push it plumb, tack it. Same thing above me. So the only spring brace we needed was here, because that front door wall was just pretty jacked. Those two braces have stayed in place, but almost everything else is above. Now we can walk around without tripping on stuff. Cut out all the door bucks. Got a place to put our ladders as we're ceiling joisting. Isn't that a lot easier? Oh, also 2-foot centers is great for walking between. Nice and clean. Good job, Kyle.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, I gotta get up and get that guy.
Now, there is a whole lot more to say about wall framing, but I think that gives you kind of an overall view of our approach. On the right-hand side, you can see a beam already set on top of the walls. We went ahead and did that when we lifted some of the walls, and there it is. Kyle started on one end of the house, I started on the other, and the only thing is just to keep track of where you're at, that you don't frame yourself, paint yourself into a corner, so to speak. So, nice and easy. That was a good, nice, beautiful spring day. Notice on the left there in the middle on the sawhorses, that's where Kyle had stacked all of his king stud trimmers so that they were ready. You're trying to make components, right? That way when you're framing, you can just stay in rhythm. All the walls strapped together as we go. And there it is. Not much more to say, but hey, I do have some time to fill. So I should probably say something intelligent. Or just let the music go. Ah, no, here it is on the right-hand side. Notice the inspector showed up for our shear inspection. So he and I just chatted. We chatted about some of the issues that we had with the neighbors. He always asks, do we have any questions? So, do you think I ever have a question when he asks that? No. So I've learned, like, okay, the inspector's coming out, I need to have a question. There's always something that I think, oh, I need to ask the inspector. Write it down and ask them. They are a great resource. It shows them you care, and it's never a bad thing to facilitate some communication. Okay, so there's the braces up high, all the walls are framed, everything's clean. We are ready to start setting some beams and ceiling joists. Now, here's a picture at the start of the day. There's all the walls laid out. Not that many walls, let's be honest. But there they perfectly match what was snapped on the floor, which should perfectly match the plans. Now, if you hear this, there they are in 3D, perfectly matching what you saw before we added studs. So there's the process. Square plumb, parallel, level, all that good stuff. Thank you for watching the video, everybody. Please like and subscribe. Tell one other person in your family that you think this is the greatest channel on earth, and I will love you forever. Anyway, we're getting into some beams and roof framing in the next video. Stay tuned. Thank you again for watching.
I'll go check the line.
It's good. Just
Okay.
put the stupid camera down. Screw it. Right there. Right there. I'm cramping.
Hold on, this is awkward.
See if it holds.
Good job.
Booyah.
See how good it was.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Good job.
Thanks. That was a high five. That was